Good morning, everyone. Or it may be a different time of day when you're watching this, but never mind. And we're back again for Perspectives on Expanded Consciousness. This is our fourth episode, if you like. It's all about the art and science of visualization with a little bit of a sprinkling of gratitude thrown on top as a sugar coating. And so I've got Bridget Long here again with me, and delightful, inspirational and great mentor. She and I have connected for a while now, since probably 2017, maybe even earlier, I can't remember, but no matter, time of little note here because we can just full time.
Yes.
Yeah. Time is a human construct anyway. But yeah, let's talk about visualization. And I speak about this in my own coaching, and I encourage, in fact, actually, a current client I'm working with who wants to create, well, she's working on two businesses. And one business, she said, I really would like this model to model my men's attire. And I said, right, you need to work on your visualization practice. And so I gave her lots of meditations, one of my own, and how to go about doing that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in detail. And I know Bridget has a lot to say on this topic. So without really hogging the show, let's move over to Bridget and give her the mic so she can start sharing. And visualization can do lots of things, and we'll cover those off in and it is an art and a science. So there is a science behind it, definitely, in more ways than one, and also an art in terms of it's something that's creative and needs to go with the emotions. So yes, over to you, Bridget. Let's
well, I think I'm turning up as a bit of a student here, because even though I do a lot of visualization myself, I think I'd love to know more about how you guide people to help improve their visualizations. But I just think that the first thing about visualization is it's important to not put the cart before the horse, and to really set an intention of knowing to get clear on what you want. And I had this conversation with my daughter yesterday. She said, oh, how do you do that? I said, well, write a list of the things you don't want. So I can do that. It's easy to write down what we don't want, but sometimes it's more challenging to get clarity on what we want. So I think the first thing is right, but even if it's not crystal clear and all the pieces are in place and it's absolutely perfect, it doesn't matter, because actually all visualization is training the mind to be steady enough to hold an image in place so that eventually it becomes a physical manifestation. Pretty much, right? It's part of a massive part of the creative process, from idea to physical manifestation. And they say what the mind can
conceive, it can achieve, yes.
And what you see in your mind, you hold in your hand, and all that kind of thing. So it's worthwhile. And building that visualization muscle. And so really, it was probably about a year ago, and I thought, right, I want to level up. I'm okay where I am, but I'm satisfied where I am, but eager for more. And I started to look for various tools of how I could sharpen my saw and how I could become more disciplined and focused in my mindset. Because I am your proverbial monkey, right? Love the fun and going from this to that. And, and then, of course, you've got life coming in, L with a little L. Family, obligations, all that kind of stuff as well. And I think as women particularly, we are called to do a lot of things and spin a lot of plates. So having that clarity of being able to hold the feeling and the vision of what we want in all the Ferrari of everyday life is really where the mind needs to build strength and focus and muscle.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say it's important in that regard is the fact that we do actually narrow the focus a bit, because Never Goddard says take a specific scene, take a specific enactment of your wish, because that makes it more clear, because you can then engage all the senses more specifically. So whether it's then a handshake, somebody shaking your hand as congratulations, isn't it? Or whether you're receiving a bouquet for something, or anything like that, more specific and more narrowed in its focus. So yeah,
absolutely. And then it's so I think it's not just about this is what we do, but why do we do it is because on a vibrational level, everything that we want to create is already created. And so what is going to turn it into physical manifestation is the vibration of our belief in being able to do so and to have it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Bridget, because we taught that visualization is engaging the five senses, but I actually say it's engaging all the six senses. So the heart sense, which is really the vibration sense. And we have to really connect with it on a cellular level. So through the heart, through the feeling, we actually activate the cells, and the cells vibrate to the tune, if you like, to the resonance of that image or in your mind.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So it starts off as a mental process, decide what you want, the handshake, the trophy, the money, the hot lover, the,
or the heel. Yes. Exactly.
Whatever it might be. But I used to really get confused, because I was like, well, there's so many things I want. What the flipping hell am I going to choose? Right?
Yeah.
And then I just thought, right, well, you know what? Let's just choose one thing and see how I get on with that. And actually, as a sidebar or side note, about 4 years ago, I really wanted to lose some weight, and I don't do hungry very well, not for long periods of time. And I wanted to, I really wanted to drop a stone. And one day I was like, oh my God, I'm just so sick of this, sort of like falling off the wagon. I wonder if I can do this with my mind. So Google is your best friend. I Googled how to lose weight through visualization. And I came across a process, which is a short 1-minute visualization that you do before you eat. So 3-4 times a day, depending on how many meals you eat. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. So it's 21 days, 7-day break, 21 days, and you do that 3 cycles. Well, blow me down. I lost 12 kilos.
Wow.
It was
no
amazing.
Change in diet, no change in exercise. Because obviously that had to be held constant for a control test.
No exercise, no diet.
Yeah. Do I'm doing the same thing at the moment with my menopause belly. So I'm literally visualizing nice sort of contoured, structured tummy and already feeling that it's not quite as inflated every day.
Like all this diet and exercise stuff is a complete myth, right?
Well, it's a yo-yo thing, isn't it? Well, it never really leads to permanent change.
So what happened then? So of course, in the physical world, things started to change. So what happened after each visualization? My appetite was cut in half. That's what happened. It's a very specific visualization, a bit weird, where you actually visualize yourself going through the eye of a needle and coming out really, 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 really thin on the other side, with all the fat on the floor.
Well, that's very graphic.
Very graphic.
Yes.
Right. But I was open, because I just you get to a point, right, where the pain of change is less than the pain of not changing. Yes. Right. That famous tipping point, right?
It is. Yes. Yeah.
And well, blow me down. It worked. I mean, of course, I felt completely ridiculous doing it in the first, but then, of course, like everything, it becomes a habit, and you're just like, oh, well, here we go then. Off we go through the needle. And the results were stupefying. Absolutely stupefying.
Yeah.
And so
and of course, another scientific fact is that the brain can't distinguish between what's real and not real in terms of our imagination. So that's another point in terms of visualization, isn't it?
And then with visualization, the sharper it gets, it's like a radio signal, isn't it? You know, you can't tune into 98 FM if you want 103 FM or whatever it might be. So you're fine tuning the image all the time, so you get that perfect signal, because the clearer the signal we send to the universe will be going like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, give her what she wants, right? So that's clear. But the key here, and Neville says it in The Power of Awareness, and I think it's a really, really important thing. We have to feel, like you were just saying, that it is now our natural state of already having it.
Because invoking the law of assumption, isn't it? It's already happened.
The law of
assuming of the wish fulfilled. Yeah.
Correct. Focus and feel, focus and feel, focus and feel. We mustn't feel like we're forcing it, because if we're forcing it, we're in resistance and ain't nothing going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
Even when I'm teaching people how to do the definite main purpose statement, I said, you can repeat this 1,000,000 times mechanically. Nothing will happen. If you repeat it feelingly twice a day for 1 year, I promise it will change your life.
Because you're actually embodying it. You're actually connecting it in the cells of the body. Yeah.
Embodying it, you know, feeling it. So then the question that begs to answer is, you know, well, how do I get to that feeling place? Today in my journal, I wrote, the path of least resistance is gratitude.
Thank you for that segue, because I was going to talk about gratitude.
So we'll get to that. So then I said on this, I was like, okay, so I've got the body thing down. I know how to do that. You know, that's great. You know, I don't have to, you know, I can just basically eat. But of course, then what happens is that you start making different choices, not because they feel like it's a, you know, a
push or yes, I've got to, you know,
intuitively guided to eat differently and less.
Yeah. And your body actually craves less. Yeah. It wants less.
And you know, you don't even have to make the decisions. Just like, hey, you know what? I've had enough. Unbelievable. I mean, I always say to people, look, you don't worry about diets, just whatever you're eating, cut it in half. You'll lose weight. Right? Like, you know, keep eating pizza, keep eating, you know, chips, whatever you do, but instead of having a bowl, have half a bowl.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed how quickly you'll lose weight.
But it's the same with money visualizations and things like that. Sometimes it's not, because, you know, people say, oh, they're going to set an affirmation for money and things like that. And because they're not feeling it, they're not really, it's mental exercise. It just really it ricochets off. It doesn't really penetrate and then become embodied. And I think the difference is sometimes it helps connecting money to another joyful purpose or a way of serving.
What do I want? Well, I want this money, but why do I want it? What am I going to do?
Why do I want it? And that's what we talked about previously, the why behind everything.
Correct.
And that really is the motivational power.
Just to finish the story, so I was just like, okay, so I'm kind of like, I'm really curious to know about how I can do this in terms of improving my business, as well as having experimented through losing weight through visualization. And I came across, and I literally can't remember how, there's an incredible philosopher called Thomas Troward. And he only ever had one student in his life, and her name was Genevieve Berend. Yeah. And Genevieve Berend, she lived in America, basically I think she was widowed, had a reasonable income, but she was bored with her life. You know, she was a bit of a socialite, didn't really have much going on. And she had really wanted to deepen her spiritual awareness, and she'd heard about Troward, who was based in the UK, actually down in the West Country, and wanted to work with him. And everybody, you know, from all of her inquiries, she realized he didn't have any personal students, he didn't take anybody on individually, he only just did, you know, he was a writer, a philosopher, and did, you know, large conferences and stuff like that. So she set it as a task to go and work to be Thomas Troward's student, and for that she needed a sum of £20,000 to be able to go to England and live comfortably, to be able to pay all her expenses while she worked with him. So she set her sights on visualizing £20,000. Now this was written 100 years ago, so today it's probably, you know, a couple of hundred, right, at least. And she then started to visualize 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. There's a bit of a technique to it. And of course, 6 weeks later, there was the money. Off she went. And then she tells the story of how she actually persuaded Thomas Troward to work with her, because that was a whole other can of beans. He gave her challenges, he gave her tasks and so on to know whether he was, worth giving his time. And in the end, she succeeded.
Yeah.
And so
I was saying to that, because actually she got a friend to write him letters to try and get him, and there were no replies, and she still travelled to the UK on the assumption, now this is invoking the law of assumption, that it was a done deal, and she went there and travelled there, and she had already manifested this money to do this. And and then wired him, and apparently he wired her a time then. Yeah, so that's the book. I've got it as well.
Love this book. I read it loads of times. So yeah, so what a great story, and this is what people are looking for, is okay, that sort of like practicalities. Last thing I want to say is, this is not going to be like sitting in the middle of a cornfield going and gold bars are going to fall out of the sky. We haven't quite got to that point of manifestation yet. Maybe one day we will. But what I've noticed through my visualization process, and I am on day 33 of a new cycle, and I do track my cycle. What happens is, through persistence, which is in Think and Grow Rich, persistence, they all talk about persistence, is that in the beginning, you're just like, you don't feel it, don't really believe it. You're just like, put it out there, right? But then over the course of time, as you start visualizing it at least once a day, and as Neville says, as you're going to sleep, fall asleep with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, go into the thankfulness and all the rest of it, you will start to notice shifts in consciousness, looking at things from a different perspective. And gradually that perspective starts to change. It's looking at the world through the perspective of having already achieved your goal. And it's really, really interesting. It's not always comfortable, because sometimes so it's and changing. In the Science of Getting Rich, he says, anybody that can master being able to see things in their imagination as if they really are that, without being focused on what actually is already physically manifest, is a mastermind, right? And that is really the whole sum and substance. So how are you going to anchor this and accelerate that feeling to be able to get to that point where you get into manifestation? And that's where gratitude comes in.
Exactly, because we can so easily be held captive to what our five senses are showing us. That obviously it's not yet real or made manifest necessarily in our 3D, but we have to always connect back to the 4D, the imagination, or the conception of ourselves as having already having this, and then interlacing and spicing it up with a bit of gratitude. And it's always feeling grateful for what you have at the moment, because obviously that will sustain the vibration, and not looking to the lack, to whatever's missing in your life at the moment, because obviously that would just draw you back further away from your power. So I always see that being in the 3D is the furthest away from your I, or I am consciousness, your Christ or God consciousness. So whenever you're sort of ensnared by your 3D, then just notice it. Don't criticize or judge yourself. Just go back. And people, they think daydream is a waste of time, but it's daydreaming with a purpose. And that's the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, and through this process of gratitude, it builds belief and faith.
It does, yeah.
Right. So what's really interesting, I'm preparing a training at the end of September for my team. I think I'm going to tell them I've got an affirmation that will give you everything you want, and it's not going to blow your minds. It's called thank you.
And thank you for having this already. It's already a done deal, isn't it? It's a wish.
And then the real mastery comes with saying thank you for something which is still in its imaginary form.
Exactly, yeah.
And, the great greatest metaphysician of all time, Jesus, right? He just used it all the time. He kept saying, I thank thee, Father, that thou hearest me. All he did it. But
all
it's really important not to just think writing 3 things you're grateful for in the morning and then your job is done.
No,
all day. All day. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And as soon as something catches your attention that drags you, say, into that 3-dimensional form, just go back to those, because everybody can remember that affirmation of thank you. Yeah. And even if it doesn't mean anything, the more you repeat it, so we know that a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. Very important. So through repetition, the beliefs start to, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then start thinking like, oh my God, thank you. Oh, wow, thank you, right? Then you even tiny things start to happen, and then neglect not the day of small things. So when you come to a point where just even small things are happening, you're just like, okay, signs of land.
Thank you.
Signs of land.
And
right?
that's it. You're looking out, then that's your reticular activating system, then looking for the evidence. So it's always focusing on the positive
manifestations. Yes. So
are in support of that visualization.
You start to expect it, right? And expectancy plus that feeling of, I expect it to happen. Just as we expect to be able to utter our next word, continue on this call, breathe our next breath, it becomes that level of expectancy through repetition. That's what's really interesting. And if we're patient and we persist through that repetition, lovingly, patiently, in a way that you've got to be really, really in love with that process as well. Because if you're impatient and you want it now, and or as soon as you get
resistant energy, isn't it? It's counterproductive.
Yeah. And I just think the antidote to everything is just saying, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because sometimes we're giving all these strings of affirmations. I can't remember them all. In the midst of all the furore of the day, how do I pull out a 20-word affirmation out of my brain? That's not. Everybody can say thank you. Right?
Yeah.
Breathe 3 times, say thank you 10 times, move on to the next. Everybody can do that through the process of segment intending. Yeah,
brilliant.
So tell us about your it's a bit more about how you guide people through visualization and how they associate that with feeling.
It's really just connecting them back to their feeling nature, just giving them, help supporting them create a specific scene, as Neville Goddard would say. Just crystallizing it really, and infusing it with as much high energy emotion as they can, and like thinking, just put yourself in that scene, and what does it really feel like when you've achieved that, when that is happening for you. And that's when the imagination is really required, because you need to imagine how you would feel, not what you're actually seeing or touching or tasting or whatever it is. It's what you're feeling.
Do you get people to write it down, how they're feeling, the words that they associate with that feeling, or is it just something more?
It's just something more and less base than that, if you like. It's
I know,
really
anyway.
And of course it is a practice. So I said, it may take a little bit of time, really identifying those emotions and really connecting with them. But I say, there is a specific creation technique that I show. I haven't yet shown her this, but it's described in a meditation that I've recorded. But it's just drawing it down from your third eye into your base chakra and then pushing it out there into the universe. But it's literally holding, as if it's like a ball, a vibrational ball, and it's this creative scene with the emotions infused into it. It's like, but I say, a good telltale sign that you're doing it right is that you've got shivers throughout your body. Your actual body is vibrating and you've got goosebumps and your hairs are standing up. And that's when you've really connected with the emotion. Because, you're electric, really, literally. Everything's like standing on end. And for me, that's when bang. And when I did that one, this particular process once, I don't know why I don't do it more often, to be honest. It's again, see, life gets in the way. Sometimes you get too much sucked into the doing, rather than in the imagination and the visualization of your, desired outcome. And but last year I did this, and I was visualizing myself on a stage speaking to an audience, and lo and behold, within 48 hours, a lady reached out and said, she said, oh, can we have a Zoom call? And we did. And she said, I've got some ladies, I'd like you to do a talk for them. So it was just crazy, isn't it? But also since then, you know, I've manifested working with a company called Thriving Communities. And I have now the opportunity to speak live, not necessarily on a big stage, but I know that's because my consciousness, my state of awareness is not quite there yet. I still have to grow. And sometimes it's a little bit too far-fetched. Even if I'm visualizing it, sometimes there is a slight disconnect and maybe that's me just buying still too much into my 3D experience. But it's then pulling it back and then saying, you know, what is it that I really want to be? You know, harnessing the desire of the idealized, but it's not. It's the real meal behind all the layers of self. You know, well, I suppose the lack of self-belief sometimes. But it's the real me behind that, because I think your desires are your connection to your higher self. It's you being expressed in a divine way. And then when we can let go of the fears and the doubts, then we are raising our consciousness, our level of state of awareness, and to who we really are, the power of who we are. And then it's a surer, faster route to, you know, to manifest what we visualize. I definitely think so. And so, you know, it's not to say it's easy at first, because we have to shrug off a lot, and but also we have to be disciplined, as you say. It's that perseverance, that persistence to the visualization practice, and to the persistence to the state of consciousness of who we are. Yeah.
I mean, I think you have to set out with the intention is that this is going to work. And
true.
You know, whether it takes me a day or it takes me 10 years, and we hear it again in Think and Grow Rich so many times, you know, people who had a definite purpose statement, the guy who wants to work with Edison, for example. I mean, I think it took him about 15 years or something, but he never
let go of it.
Never let go of it. He was going to be in partnership with Edison. He wasn't going to work for him. He was going to work with him.
Yeah.
He traveled across in like a cattle truck or something all the way across the country just to get there. And I think that's really where, you know, I'll start and I'll finish. You know, I'll start and I'll finish without making it, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I'll do it or I'll die trying kind of thing, but without making it into a resistant, you know, I'll do it or I'll die trying, you know. That's, you know, you said, my attitude is always just like, I wonder how far I can go before I croak. You know, never going to get it done fully, are you? You're just like, let's see how far I can go with this stuff, right? Let's see how far I can go. Let's have fun with, you know, with the universe. And I think the other thing is that with regards to our desires, sometimes we feel, or I have experienced other people feelings just like, oh, I shouldn't want that, it's too much or anything. But actually what it is the universe giving us desires because it's a form of expressing itself further.
Exactly, yeah. And it's giving us permission to do so, yeah.
You know, it's just because that is what the universe wants, is for us to express and expand ourselves further, because it's a way for the universe to know itself better through our own personal expansion. So don't do it for you, do it for the universe. Yeah, because you're a bit like guilty is just like, actually all I want is X, Y, Z, and, you know, to travel 3 times a year in a, you know, business class, or, you know, whatever it might be. Just like, oh, you know, it's like, no, that's just the universe who really, really, really wants to express itself in this manner, you know, and it's going to have so much fun, you know, and that's what, you know, the universe is there to do. I mean, whether you call it having fun or whatever it might be, but, you know, for its
experience more joy,
pleasure, and in the expansion. Yes, because the basis of life is freedom, and the purpose of life is joy.
Yeah.
And so there are sort of like a few elements, but I think, you know, that book has been particularly useful for me, and I return to it again and again. All the work by Florence Scovel Shinn, I still go back to Florence again and again.
And of course, Neville Goddard.
Neville.
He's a mainstay, isn't he, in visualization? And,
and you know, I love Neville because he was very, you know, he was. I mean, what some people might call materialistic, you know, he was just like, I want to go to Barbados. I want this money to come. I want this wife, right? He was, you I don't want her anymore. I want her. Oh, there we are. She's screwed up, so I can divorce her now and get someone else. You know, he was just like on a roll. You know, and I think that's of course it's those so many different ways of different amazing teachers, but all pointing to the same truth. You know, the same truth.
Same with Jesus, isn't it? It's like he was metaphysicist in the, you know.
I mean, but what's this deal with the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And very interesting actually in the book Spiritual Economics, he talks about that, and he said, well, what do you think he did? He just like got out a magic wand and went ka-ching. It's like, no, he did not do that. All he did was he saw the 5,000 people. He blessed the loaves and the fishes. He looked up.
That's the gratitude.
Thank thee, Father, that thou hearest me. And he looked at from a consciousness of plenty. A consciousness of plenty. And then apparently the bit that they leave out is that there were some traveling merchants and their wives going by who did not have time to stop, but they were laden with food. And they gave it all to the gathering with Jesus. That is the bit that they keep missing out. He didn't just, like, as I say, turn. And
it just wasn't. Yeah, that's a big point, actually. But the thing is, also what's underpinning that is that you will find that if you stay steadfast in your visualization of the reality accomplished and the feeling of it, then there will be synchronicities. There will be people supposed uncanny circumstances and events unfolding that will create that reality and move you into the 3D experience of your wish fulfilled.
And then one more thing is that when this starts to happen, don't stop saying thank you. You've got to keep, because we tend to just pray when things are going really bad.
Really bad. Yeah, but it's also when it's good, isn't it? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what we have to remember is that, this is a lifelong practice, right? It's very human to do it. It's just like, oh, everything's fine. Just like, take it all for granted and, don't offer appreciation or whatever. I'm not going to bother now. Everything's great. Well, blow me down. We've got to stay, focused on really being in that state of deep appreciation, thankfulness, love, contribution. And it really, really does work. And sometimes to not neglect, as you said, Esther, those little manifestations that often precede the big ones. It's just like little dots on the path leading to it, and be thankful for everything. So yeah,
it's a complete treasure trail. So yes, it's like,
yes,
go get your next clue and then move on to the next.
Oh, I love that. I love treasure trail. Yeah. Absolutely. So,
and each one is a treasure to be treasured and to be grateful for, isn't it? Every time.
And then I think sometimes where it can be scary is that some people start to disappear from your life and new people come in. That's one of the things that you do. You start
that does happen, doesn't it? Because they're no longer in that energy of the vibration that matches that reality.
Yeah. And then, sometimes as well, like even I've noticed in the last few days, I'm reacting differently to messages that I might get through, or I'm being able to say, actually, I'm not going to respond to that now. I'm going to respond to that later. So my whole kind of perspectives on priorities are changing and stuff like that as well. That is something that's going to take me a good half an hour, 45 minutes to deal with. And it is actually not. It doesn't feel right to do it now. So again, going back to that feeling, and the thing is
into that, definitely all the time.
Every time. And we hear over and over and over from Abraham, don't we? Look, it's impossible to track your thoughts second by second. It's just impossible. You're going to drive yourself nuts in any case.
Totally, right? Yeah, I was going a bit nuts as I told me, and I needed a bit of Reiki on the weekend, and that changed it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Exactly. We can get caught up in the doing, because what the doing is trying to sort of have the control to create the results And that's antithesis to actually the manifestation process.
Of course.
It's not allowing universe to literally create the magic of manifestation.
Yeah.
You know, it's
yeah.
like,
I mean,
and I was realizing that, and I'm thinking, what am I doing? You know, I know all this stuff and I'm not embodying it at all. And then, but it's not being harsh on myself and just noticing it, and then really taking a step back, and then going back into my future, going back into my calm, in the inner, the eye of the storm. I'm the eye of the storm. There may be chaos outside of me, but in my center, I am calm, I am serene, and from this energy, I create and manifest.
Correct. And you know, that's why I'm very, very cautious now of what I put in my planner. You know, because I don't want to get out of that vibrational alignment by getting too much into the doing.
Sucked in. Yeah.
And it's almost as if we're programmed to think if we're not so busy doing, there's something kind of wrong with
us. Yeah, with us as well.
Yeah, it's like,
and we won't get the results. You know, we think doing is creates the results. But that's the way we've been conditioned.
Well, it is. And, you know, this is what I was listening to Abraham. She said, you know, everybody loves to beat the drum. If I stood up on stage and I worked myself to death and I had so many struggles, and she was just like, they have to tell that story. So they start telling the story of, oh, it was really easy. You know, I just basically did a couple of things every single day. I had very clear, and I kept my vibration high, and boom, 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 everything came in. So you can't tell that story. People are like, throw stones at you.
Yes. Blasphemer. Yes.
I am telling that story. You don't have to work out, you know, 25 hours a week in the gym and deprive yourself to a point of starvation every day to lose 12 kilos. Who knew? Yeah, I took the easy route, you know. And I think that's really what spearheaded me into wanting to level up. I was just like, what if I could actually do this based on spiritual principles? Wouldn't that be a fine tale to tell?
And I think that's the attitude to take with any new spiritual practice, including visualization and any type of manifestation process, is to go into it, enter it with an open-mindedness, childlike curiosity, and just say, what if? There's no harm. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, you know, the chances are it will work. Just being open-minded.
Yes, and there's a great game. I was playing it yesterday. Wouldn't it be nice if?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if I blah, blah, blah? Wouldn't it be nice if it's one of the processes in Ask It's Given? And I was just like, that's such a great game to play. I said to the girls, you know, we've got this event at the end of September. I said, wouldn't it be nice if we filled the room? And they were like, it would. And whether it's just like, normally it's just like, oh, no, one of it, you know. It's like, wouldn't it be nice if there's no resistance to that?
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? I said to my friend the other day, I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if so-and-so reached out to me and asked for help? Boom! 20 minutes later, she's like, I need your help.
No way. Oh, Jose.
So we don't know what wouldn't it be nice if it's going to come first, because it's always through the path of least resistance, right? I was just like, well, I said to her, do you know what? I just said, wouldn't it be nice? Because I could see, so one of my greatest mentors ever said to me, there's only so far you can beat your body forward. Then you've got to draw from a higher power. So you can kind of get to a certain level in my business by beating your body forward, you know, grind every day, right? But then when you go to a level that I'm now reaching for, it's never about grind. It's always about mind, you know. And I was like, when he said it, of course, at the time, I was just like, what do you mean you can't beat your body forward? And I was like, oh, that's what he meant, right?
Yeah.
So very, very interesting to see how all this is kind of like unfolding.
And you know, again, I'm playing with it in terms of my health, and so osteoarthritis in my knees. So I'm visualizing being healthier, you know, doing things, and it helps me also to start, you know, habits and that actually help reinforce my health, you know, and to do more walking, to do more breath work, to do more channeling of positive energy into my body, you know, specifically into troublesome spots, but not actually identify them as troublesome, because obviously when we focus on that, then we create more the agony and the pain. But it's feeling the relief and the healing energy in there. So but anyway, I digress. So we just wanted to keep on track. But yeah, I think we've done quite a bit today, haven't we? Oh my goodness me.
We're getting into the flow of this,
We are. Yeah, it just gets easier, doesn't it? And as I say, that's another thing to take away. You know, it's it doesn't matter how we do this to show up for ourselves. If anything else, you know, it's to go into our elevated sense of who we are.
Yes.
And so when you're doing anything for the first time, try not to be fearful of, because when we think, oh, we got to do it perfect, or we got to be some better than somebody else, it's actually, that's from a limited mindset, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
embrace the journey.
Embrace the journey. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just, I want to just say a final, I did have something on my screen. You know, a final quote, I think, from Genevieve Behrend is, we all possess more power and greater possibilities than we realize. And visualizing is one of the greatest of these powers. So I think that's a lovely quote to finish on. And thank you all for watching live. So I've noticed Marlies. Hi, Marlies. How are you? And also Jeffrey, who's been on before and has given us some of his wisdom and some of his feedback on what we're saying. So we can come back to that. That's on LinkedIn. He's put a comment in there. So if you want to read it at your leisure, you can. But thank you all the same for joining us. And next week, we'll be going live at the same time on the same platforms as previously, as today. So, and thank you so much, Bridget, from the bottom of my heart. You are amazing. And I bow to you.
Right back at you.
But not in a subservient way, you know, but in a very appreciative and acknowledgement. I honor you. It's namaste.
This has been the most wonderful process of co-creation, and I have enjoyed every single minute of it. And yeah, it's been really, I feel grateful to have been asked to be part of it, Esther. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye then, everyone. Bye.
Bye.